Namaskaram.
Namaskaram. To everyone to switch on the videos and you can be on mute. Just to help me relate to people with their names, and it's also good to see people early in the morning. Thank you. I'll get yes. Get it started. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Harihi Om. Sri Shailabhijanambura Shishinam Sri Krishna Tatatmajam Sri Shailanve Devanatha Sudhya Prapta Gavanta Dvayam Padabche Narsimhatate Guroho Nyastatma Raksha Bharam Vidvad Vranda Chakora Chandiramaham Ramanujaryam Shraye Shriranga Sudha Madhusamaswadayantam Shriranga Mahishi Padapankajatmajam Sulabhashrayam Sada Moda Siddham Adbhutam Bhajeham Gurung Tam Ranganatha Priyam Sukhasanastham Hridayabja Pithe Chinmudraya Lankata Pani Padmam Shubho Pavitam Vimalodhvapundram Namami Rangam Guru Mantarenge Namami Yoga Samrajnim Vijayam Vijayapradam Srirangardha Sanasinam Karunamamataram Guru Rupa Paranjyotihi Jyoti Rupa Guru Paraha Ajnana Mandiram Hyetate Guru Vijnana Mandiram Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangum Lankahite Girim Yatkrupa Tamaham Vande Paramananda Madhavam Yoantah Pravishya Mama Vachamimam Prasuptam Sanjeevayatyakila Shakti Dhara Swadhamna Anyamscha Hastacharana Shravanatvagadine Pranam Namo Bhagavate Purushaya Tubhyam Jnananandamayan Devam Nirmalas Phatikakritim Adharam Sarvavidyanam Hayagrivam Upasmahe Jnananandamayin Devim Nirmalas Phatikakritim Adharam Sarvavidyanam Param Vacham Upasmahe Jayatya Santrasa Dhvanta Vidvamsanodaya Prabhavan Shritaya Devya Paramavyoma Bhaskaraha Sakradeva Prapannaya Tavasmiti Jayachate Abhayam Sarvabhutebhyaha Tadam Yetat Pratam Mama Narayana. With salutations to our Guru and the Guru of all Gurus will commence our session today. So we were looking at the foundations as to what is special about Srimad Ramayana, and why are we supposed to go through Srimad Ramayana? And again, I'll request those of you who are still not on their videos to come on video, unless it's a bandwidth issue for you. And we have seen that the subject matter is something that is very deeply connected to our own nature and going beyond our nature to the universal truth. And the person who has written about both of these is a great rishi, and he was himself initiated by the greatest among all rishis, Sri Narada Maharshi. And in that context, we have seen the various gunas, Atma gunas of Sri Ramachandra that Narada is narrating to sage Valmiki. We were looking at certain shlokas from Balakandam, and we were in sloka number 19. Yeah. And Tamevam Gunasampannam Ramam Satyparakramam Jeshtham Sreshta Gunayiryuktam Priyam Dasharatha Sutam. What I will do now is I'll take sloka number 20, and then Balakandam is a long chapter, the first sarga itself. I will then go directly to the last few set of slokas just to continue with the parampara, okay? And then we'll move on to the other chapter, okay? So sloka number 20 in Srimad Balakandam, what is it saying? Prakritinam hitairyuktam prakriti priyakamyaya yavarajyena samyoktam aichat pritya mahipatihi. This is the first sloka from where onwards Sri Narada Maharshi starts narrating the actual events. Okay, it becomes a story to us later on, a history. It is called as Itihasam. Srimad Ramayanam is called as Itihasam, which basically means it is like a Netflix documentary series. So there are so many documentaries that are made based on the life and events and facts of people, things, places, etc. So in a similar manner, this is also a narration of events that actually took place. And we will not get into the debate of, well, show me the real proof, etc. There are ongoing efforts to establish connectivities. But we should bear in mind that Srimad Ramayana has a 3-tier structure embedded in it. Okay. Just like we were giving the analogy of a coconut tree and how it is described by a botanist, right? There is a sthula way of describing the tree. Sthulam means that which is gross. Gross means that which we can perceive with our senses, which we can see, we can hear, we can touch, we can feel, we can taste. Such a thing is known as a gross substance. And in Sanskrit, it is called as sthulam. Then, if you were to look at, okay, here is the bark of the coconut tree, here is the leaf of the coconut tree. There are certain things which are not immediately visible to our naked eye. But if you were to use certain instruments like a lens, right, you will be able to see things in greater detail. So that particular state is called as sukshma, that which is slightly beyond the reach of our senses. Okay. So as we, most of us probably, especially my generation and older, we all start our day by reading, Times of India or the Hindu or the Daily Mail and so on, isn't it? As our age progresses, we want the font size to be heading size only. We can't read the fine print, so to say. Our eyes will fail us. So we start wearing an instrument which connects our eye with the object of study. So that is known as sukshma, right? In fact, if somebody has a very good eyesight, if they take the leaf very close to their eyes, they will be able to see finer details. But the wider public will need access to an instrument. Lens ledante manam chudalekapotam. We will not be able to see what is the finer detail. Now, you will be able to see certain aspects, let's say the cell membrane, the vacuoles and so on. But beyond that also, you will see that the vacuoles and so on are nothing but molecular structures, right? A deeper scientist will say, I am not seeing the bark. I am not even seeing your vacuoles, but I am seeing the peptide bonds. Okay, எங்க இருக்கு அப்படின்னு நம்ம கேட்க போனோம்னாக்கா நம்மளுக்கு தெரியாத போயிடும். So when somebody urges you that no, there is something which is beyond what you are able to see, immediately we question. And we sort of develop a mentality to stay away from things for the simple reason that there is nothing in between, a go between the object and the observer. Okay, and there is a need for not just a lens, but to look at that level of detail. You will probably need an electromagnetic spectrum analyzer and so on and so forth. You may need something which looks at that level of molecular level of detail. Therefore, that is known as para in Sanskrit. Sthula, Sukshma and para. This is with respect to the Prakriti that I gave the analogy, that is in the context of a tree. Likewise, this whole Brahmandam or the universe also has these three tiers. And the para aspect of this Brahmandam is nothing but the Supreme Brahman. And it is our sort of goal and birthright, as my guru used to say, for us to endeavor to get into that paradrishti, so that you will see method in madness, right? This whole Prakriti will look like a chaotic structure unless you go to the level of detail. Sorry, just give me a minute. Sorry, Andre. Likewise, in Srimad Ramayanam, if you were to consider it as a mere text, then there is a Sthula Drishti. The Sthula Drishti is nothing but the narration of events. It's a story. It is worth understanding. It is worth archiving. And it is worth several debates. There are lots of interesting questions that will arise in our minds. And there are people who are capable of giving the correct responses to people in terms of whatever questions you may have. And therefore, you get an understanding of the story itself. That is the Sthula Drishti. The Sukshma Drishti and the Para Drishti are not normally within our reach unless we resort to a guru. A guru as a person who will handhold you and then take you through this interesting journey from Sthula through Sukshma into Para. And the Sukshma Drishti is that the characters that appear in this particular story and history are not just earthly people, but they are endowed with divinity. They are all in a world which is not normally perceivable by our senses. They are beyond our senses, and that is known as a Daivi world or Daivi Lokam. And they are full of divinity, as you would have seen. One of the divine qualities of Srimad Ramachandra is that he is somebody who is Dyutiman. He is full of effulgence and brilliance. Well, the biggest quality of something which is full of effulgence, and when it lands into Prakriti, when it takes a form, a physical form, is that it normally seeks its own company, right? So if you are aware of a process known as crystallization, right? How are crystals formed? You have a certain mother solution, or which is basically liquid to begin with, but in order for that liquid to become a solid, you need a nucleus, and around that nucleus, if you subject that solution to certain temperatures, pressures, and other catalysts and other conditions, it will slowly start becoming a solid. And that initial nucleus is the main attractor. So likewise, when the divinity in the form of the Supreme Brahman, it takes physical form, it normally is accompanied by other divinities, other people who are closer to the Paradrishti. That means they are not just people like us who are normally in the sthula plane where we see, observe things through our senses, but they have the ability to go into Sukshma. However, they also need to ascend to a state of Paradrishti, and that is actually provided by the nucleus itself. So if you were to see Lord Ramachandra, he was accompanied by a host of divinities, starting with his own siblings, right? Bharata, Lakshmana, Shatrughna, and then of course Sita Mata and Hanuman and many other dignitaries. So these were all great in their own right as human beings. But when you were to go into the state of Sukshma and Para, you will also observe that slowly, if you were to study Srimad Ramayana in the right spirit, and if we are guided by that spirit, then we will all understand this three-layer structure in Srimad Ramayana. Okay, so there is a possibility for us to ascend from Sthula through Sukshma into Paradrishti. So therefore, that is also the goal that we need to have when we study Srimad Valmiki Ramayana. There is no doubt a lot of time which we take to understand even the Sthula Drishti, 24,000 shlokas in all. If you were to do a detailed study, is not normally easy. It calls for a great effort. But to ascend beyond this Sthula Drishti, it calls for again tapas. And without tapas, it will not be possible to go into this Sukshma and Para. So therefore, that is the other thing that we need to keep in mind. So in sloka number 20, Sri Narada starts narrating the story. And this is the foundation to, the Sthula, Sukshma and Para ways of understanding Srimad Ramayana. Prakritinam hitaihi yuktam Prakriti Priyakamyaya Yavarajyena Samyoktum Aichat Pritya Mahipatihi. So Mahipati is King Dasharatha. He wanted to anoint Sri Ramachandra as the king. And among his 4 sons, he felt that the eldest of them indeed is somebody who is endowed with many qualities that he actually naturally possessed. But in order to be a king, it is not enough to just have those qualities within ourselves, but you need to have the important quality of being able to rule over your subjects. Prakritinam hitaihi yuktam. Here Prakriti means the subjects, the people of that country. So he wanted to, Lord Ramachandra had the important guna of having the welfare of the people, hitaihi yuktam, welfare of the people at his heart, and Prakriti Priya Kamyaya. So with great affection to his own subjects, that is King Dasharatha, he knew that here is somebody who has the right abilities and qualities to rule over the people. And King Dasharatha himself wanted that thing to happen to his own subjects, that may my subjects get the right king after my time. That is what Dasharatha had in mind. And with that intent, Yavarajena Samyoktam, he wanted to install the Yuvaraja. Aichat Pritya Mahipatihi. Aichat means Ichat. He had this intent of installing the Yuvaraja, and then Narada goes on into the story, as to once he's close to getting appointed, and Kaikeyi starts asking some questions, and then so on and so forth. Lord Rama is banished into the forest, and of course the entire sequence of Srimad Ramayanam is narrated. We'll go to sloka number 88 now, just for the sake of continuity. Okay, so we should bear in mind that this is a narration of events. So if you were to roll back several hundreds of years, right? So even during that period, so the events had passed in some sense, and Lord Sage Narada is narrating it to Valmiki. Punarakhya jalpanne Sugriva sahitascha saha pushpakam tat samaruhya nandigramam yayautada. So sloka 88 in Balakandam is all about the war has happened. Ravana is vanquished, and the entire retinue is now ready to come back to Ayodhya. And this sloka talks about Lord Ramachandra ascending to Pushpakam Aruhya, the Pushpaka Vimana, and he is leaving to Nandigramam on that Pushpaka chariot. And it is interesting to note that he is actually accompanied by Sugriva here. And, imagine the scenario where you have just killed Ravana and you're back with Sita, and Lord Ramachandra is very relieved. And the natural tendency for somebody who has tasted victory is to narrate a series of earlier incidents that happened. And that is what he's doing here. Jalpan. Jalpam odinaka vata solradhu. So he's chatting with Sugriva on all the events that happened until then. So that's the event that is described in sloka number 88. Nandigrame jatam hitva bhratibhis sahito nagha Ramas Sita manuprapya rajyam punaravaptavan. So one thing to note is that Balakandam, the first chapter, is itself a summary of the entire Srimad Ramayana. There are lots of detailed events that are described for each of the slokas that come in the later chapters. Okay, and therefore this is actually a summary. So when he says Sri Ramachandra spoke with Sugriva, this is ended in one sloka in Balakandam, but later on, when you have to go to Pattabhisheka Sargam, this one sloka will become 25 slokas. There he will, in very detailed manner, will know what all he chatted with Sugriva. So sloka 89 is Nandigrame Jatam Hitva. So once he reaches Nandigrama, Jatam Hitva. So this basically mentions that Lord Ramachandra indeed had Jata, meaning he did not have any haircut until he reached Nandigrama. So all through the Vanavasam, it appears that he had this vratam of not shaving his head. Probably he also sported a beard. We don't know that. Okay, that detail we'll see later on. Nandigrame jatam hitva bhratrabhi sahito nagaha. So he, of course, Lakshmana also was probably in a similar state. And we see that Lord Rama is called by the name Anagha here. Anagha means one who has no papa associated with him. That is the meaning of Anagha. Ramaha Sitam Anuprapya Rajyam Punaravaptavan. So Lord Ramachandra, he got back his kingdom after having regained Sita. Sitam Anuprapya. So he got both the things, that is his own consort Sita as well as the country that he will rule over, which is Ayodhya. Prahrishta murito lokaha tushtaha pushta sudharmikaha niramayo hyarogascha durbhiksha bhayavarjitaha. So the moment Lord Ramachandra ascended the throne, the moment he got back his kingdom as well as his consort, what happened to the world around him? Prahrishta muditaha lokaha. The entire world rejoiced with happiness. And everybody's desire was fulfilled. And there was righteousness all around. Dharma prevailed everywhere. Niramayaha. That means there was no need for anybody to be agonized. Okay, there is no fear in the minds and hearts of people in Ayodhya. Arogascha, there were no diseases for anybody. Everybody was quite healthy. Durbhikshaha, and then Bhayavarjitaha. Of course, there was no fear of famine. Okay, that means the entire Prakriti was endowed with all kinds of wealth. There were crops in abundance. Nobody had to worry about food. That's the meaning of this slokam, which basically means it does not happen automatically. It is something that happens because of the ruler here. He was himself a Dharmamurti, and he ensured that his people were not afraid of anything. They had all the means to acquire wealth of all sorts, and they were all happy. Na putra maranam kinchite drakshanti purushaha kvachite naryascha avidhava nityam bhavishyanti pativrataha. So na putra maranam kinchite drakshanti purushaha kvachite. So it's a great misfortune if somebody loses their children in their own life, right? And that happens not just because of our own karma, but also because of the ruler. Okay, so here we see that there is a direct reference to the fact that, you know, the parents did not see their children die before their eyes. That is the state with which the ruler himself was in. Okay, he ensured that everything was provisioned. Nobody died young due to either diseases or many other reasons. Na aryascha vidhava nityam bhavishyanti pativrataha avidhavaha. That is, the women also would not lose their husbands before their death. That is what it means. Everybody, every lady there died as a sumangali. That is the other meaning of that. And they were also devoted to their husbands. And we should not think they built a temple for their husbands. Pati vrataha. This vratam is actually is mutual. Okay, we will see that Lord Ramachandra had this quality of mutual love and adoration for Sita. And vratam means that I have resolved to take care of my spouse, right? And the corollary is that unless the husband takes care of the wife will not take care of the husband, right? So it is mutual. So when you say pativrata, it goes both ways. And that happens only when in a kingdom, the husbands also find a lot of opportunities for themselves to grow themselves, their family, and so on. So there was a lot of opportunity for everybody to grow. So therefore, there was no need for worrying about anything else. Nachag nijam bhayam kinchite napsu majjanti jantavaha na vatajam bhayam kinchite napi jvara kritam tatha nacha pikshud bhayam tatra na taskara bhayam tata. So all of these describe the kingdom of Ayodhya as ruled by Ramachandra. Nacha agnijam bhayam, there was no need to be afraid of fire. There were no fire accidents. Okay. Not even a little. Okay. And the creatures would not drown in water. Nacha apsu majjanti jantavaha. Majjanti means to drown. Apsu is in water. Na vatajam bhayam kinchite. There was no need to worry about cyclones. Okay. That is due to wind. And napi jvara kritam tatha. There was no need to fear from fever. Okay. Even if there was a COVID during those times, they need not worry about it. First of all, COVID itself would not come because everybody will be healthy. If your immune system is proper, then you probably no need to worry about your health. But what we see here, nachapik shud bhayam tatra, there is no need to worry about hunger because there is everything available in abundance. Na taskara bhayam tata. Taskara means, robbers, right? So we worry about security only when there are bad people all around. You need to first install a lock and a lock on top of that lock, and don't forget where you kept the key, and so on and so forth. You look at cyber security, it's a big area today to work in, isn't it? The fundamental notion with which these systems are built is that everything around me is bad, isn't it? And that is actually, unfortunately, the nature of things. It is Kali Yuga. So any software today that is built, we first see, before even the basic functionality is developed, we worry about who should be authorized to access it, right? And who should approve that access, and so on and so forth, right? Likewise, here, why is there no need to fear about robbers? Because of the fact that robbers are people who themselves do not have anything, any means of sustaining their own lives. And that was not the case here. Everybody had the means to access for roti, kapda, and makan. And probably even going beyond that, the average level of income probably was much, much higher. Therefore, you can leave your houses open. But the inner meaning of this slokam, as we said, there is Thula, Sukshma, and Para. Most of the slokas, you will be able to see these three tiers. It's very easy to look at what actually is the Sukshma and Para in this is. There is no need to worry about danger due to the various elements, Agni, water, then there is air that is spoken about here. And Jwara is basically a state where your Vata, Pitta, and Sleshma are not in proper condition. And if they are in a proper condition, you call that as Samadhi. Okay. So unfortunately, that word has got wrong connotations today. On a Samadhi panidram pair. What does that mean? That means I will kill you. Samadhi means it's a state where the Vata, Pitta, and Sleshma in our body, the three elements, are in a proper balanced condition. The moment there is an imbalance, you get what is known as Jwaram. And therefore, what this sloka actually means is that people were in a state where their elements were all balanced. You don't need to worry about imbalance due to the fire element, imbalance due to the water element, imbalance due to the wind element, right? That's the Sukshma Drishti for this particular slokam. Nachapi kshut bhayam tatra, na taskara bhayam tata. Kshut is something that is not only related to hunger, okay, of our stomach, any hunger for all our senses. I have not seen what I want to see. I have not heard what I want to hear. I have not tasted what I wanted to taste. I have not touched what I wanted to touch. All of that is known as hunger. And when will you not have that hunger? Only when you ascend these elements and internally go into a state of serenity where none of this will touch you. And that particular state was attained by people in Ayodhya Puri, for the simple reason that the Lord who is ruling is the Supreme Brahman. And Taskara Bhayam, Taskaras are basically the robbers. And who are the robbers? The robbers are nothing but our senses, sense organs, our mind, intellect, which is not in a proper condition. They try to steal away the supreme truth that exists within us. And when will you get into a state where you need not worry about robbers stealing away the Supreme Brahman? Is when you are yourself in a healthy condition. You are able to have, of course, a body which will help you to lead a normal life. But going beyond that, your mind and intellect are also properly cultured. At the same time, you are able to ascend to the most para of all sthithis. So that is the inner meaning of this sloka. And normally, if you were to look at the Sthula, Sukshma and Para, all of them have a significance in Srimad Ramayana. So you cannot negate one from the other. There was indeed a state where there were no fire accidents, which means basically the city was architected so properly that there is no possibility for fire accidents. There is no possibility for anybody to drown because he would have taken all precautions, Lord Ramachandra, to build places, swimming pools, for example. It would have had a lot of provisions that you will not get drowned. If there are rivers, then there is enough provision that, again, you will not get drowned, and so on and so forth. So there is a physical dimension, but beyond the physical is something that we should all have the eyes to see and heart to get deeper into. Nagarani cha rashtrani dhanadhanya yutani cha nityam pramudita sarve yatha krita yuge tatha. Nagarani cha rashtrani dhanadhanya yutani cha. All the great cities that were there in his kingdom, they were all rich in dhanam and dhanyam. And nityam pramudita sarve. Everybody was happy. Pramudita means pramoda, means happiness. And this is bliss. Pramuditaha. Right? Mudam happens when our mind is pleasant. And pramudita means an immense state of happiness or bliss. And that was a state, not just at some points of time. It says nityam. So there was no need to worry about anything. Therefore, you are blissful all the while. Sarve. And such was the state that although it was Treta Yugam, it looked like Krita Yugam. Yatha Krita Yuge Tatha. So every yuga, like you start with Krita Yugam, Treta Yugam, Dwapara Yugam and Kali Yugam. Every yuga has its own dharma associated with it. And that dharma is nothing but, here you can think of it as the quality. Just like we assume everybody is bad or evil in Kali Yuga, in Krita Yuga it is the extreme opposite. Okay, by default you can assume that everybody around is a jnani. So everybody had that pious state of mind, no matter what their station in life is. So this particular aspect we need to reflect upon. Yatha krita yuge tatha ashwamedha shatair drishtva tatha bahu suvarnakaihi gavam kotyayutam datva brahmalokam prayasyati asankheyam dhanam datva brahmanebhyo mahayashaha. Sloka 94 and 95 talk about how Lord Rama endowed most of the people in his country with lot of wealth. Bahu suvarnakaihi. And then ashwamedha shataihi, he conducted many ashwamedha sacrifices, and these are yagas that are conducted by kings to establish the fact that they are rulers over not only just their kingdom, but anybody else who wants to subject their kingdom to his kingdom. He would annex other kingdoms and show that he is the emperor, not just the king. And then he gavam kotyaitam datva brahmalokam prayasati. Gavam means he gifted many cows to people. And brahmalokam prayasyati. So he ascended the brahmaloka after making his people very rich. Rajavamshan shatagunan sthapayishyati Raghavaha chaturvarnyam cha lokesmin sve dharme niyokshati. Sloka 96 talks about how Rama established his own dynasty by deploying the Chaturvarnya system, and ensures that people adopt their own Swadharma. So that is something he ensured. Of course, this is a topic which we dealt with in great detail during our sessions in Bhagavad Gita. This is a very deep topic. I won't be able to complete this today, but we'll briefly touch upon this aspect in the context of a king, basically. So Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya and Shudra are the Chatur Varnas, the 4 different aspects or stations of life. And Lord Rama ensured that the spirit of these 4 different Varnas is maintained as per what it is supposed to be. So this will get into lots of questions and sub-questions. But summarily, we should all think of the fact that while as individuals, we strive to attain qualities that will make us as righteous people, irrespective of who we are. When we live in a society, there is a need for a particular order. And if everybody is oriented towards one common goal, which is in this context of leading a life which is pious and takes us closer towards the Supreme Brahman, then that order itself will dictate how the society should be organized. And unfortunately, what we see today in our society is a far removed version of the original intent with which Lord Ramachandra, it says here, Sthapayishyati Raghava. He is supposed to be the creator of this particular system. And what that means is that he had a particular sankalpa in his mind, and he had a particular way of getting it done also. So we probably have lost track of the original intent and the original methodology with which it existed. There was mutual respect and a camaraderie with which the entire society existed. So for example, let's say we accidentally stamp on a thorn and the thorn pricks our foot. It starts to bleed. But what happens is the foot itself cannot remove the thorn, isn't it? Who has to remove the thorn? The thorn needs to be removed by our hands, our fingers. But the fingers also will not remove the thorn unless the eyes see that, the foot is actually in a state of pain. Oh, hand, go close to the foot, remove the thorn. So it needs a proper coordination of the entire body. The eyes need to sense not just the event that happened, but also the pain that the foot is undergoing. It should know how to remove the thorn and give instruction, and the hand has to simply follow the instruction. So if you were to just step back and imagine that what happens if the eyes just see and keep quiet? The eye has to instruct the brain, isn't it? If the eye says, oh, my foot is now undergoing pain, I will not mind. I will just keep quiet. What will happen? The pain will continue. Likewise, if the brain doesn't function, it doesn't understand that it is the job of the fingers to go and remove the thorn, again, the whole body will suffer. Over a period of time, if the thorn is not removed, it will undergo a lot of pain. There will be gangrene that is formed, and it will be in a state of displeasure. So therefore, the eyes, the brain, the hands need to coordinate and understand what's happening to our entire body. So the entire society, if you were to look at the analogy of the body, that is the coordination with which everybody needs to work together. There is a spirit of the so-called division of labor, but having a common goal, which is establishing the righteous way of life. So that was the system that Lord Ramachandra established. And we'll take a look at this in more detail as and when we go through certain detailed aspects of this. Okay. Dasha Varsha Sahasrani, Dasha Varsha Shatani cha Ramo Rajyam Upasitva Brahmalokam Prayasyati. So Sloka 97 essentially says Lord Rama ruled for tens of thousands of years and eventually ascended to Brahmalokam. Brahmalokam here, there will be a problem if he ascends to the loka of Chaturmukha Brahma. He will say, I'm sorry, I have paid lease for my flat. You have to go to some other flat. So Brahmaloka here means Vaikuntha Lokam. So he goes back to his Vaikuntha Lokam. Idam pavitram papagnam punyam vedaischa sammitam yah pate dramacharitam sarva papaihi pramuchyate. So Sage Narada says, this is the most pious of all stories, and not just the story, but also the events that actually happened. And it is Punyam Vedaischa Sammitam. This will grant you all auspicious things, and it is equal to reading the Vedas. That's what we started off with, isn't it? Yak patete Ramacharitam Sarva Papai Pramuchyate. One who even reads the Charitram of Sri Ramachandra, then all the papas will vanish. Again, there is a Stula, Sukshma and Paradrishti for this particular statement. It is not just a mere matter of flipping the pages and reading. If you were to read it, you will have to look at it from all these three tiers and see how I relate to it, it relates to me. That is when the papas will vanish from us. I think I have overshot the time today. So we'll continue with our discussion in the next class. Okay. Guru Charanam Puja Nirbhara Bhakta Guru Charanam Puja Nirbhara Bhakta Samsara Chirad Bhava Mukta Guru Charana Puja Krishna Krishna Sevriya Manasa Niyamadevam Rakshasini Jardayastam Evam Bhaja Govindam Bhaja Govindam Govindam Bhaja Mudhamate Kaila vacha manasa indriyaiva buddhya atmana va pante svabhavat karomi adhyat sakalam parasmai shriman narayana yeti samarpayami. Have a great day and a week ahead. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Raghavanji.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.